All right, so we are going to move from the very basic concepts, which is going to take us towards the more latest technologies of omics, but essentially give you some idea for how these kind of sequences can be analyzed, how these kind of basic bioinformatics can be done. So that's going to be focused for this particular lecture in the session, which is proteins and the basic bioinformatics. So some of these are really basic, which people study at the undergrad level, but given the nature of the audience is very diverse and quite different, we would like to get everybody on same page and like to show at least some of these tools as well. So, we will talk about how to retrieve different type of sequences from the NCBI. Again, many times you do not have access to a lot of data from your own lab or from your own project, but you want to still do a lot of interesting project, interesting questions you want to address. So there's a lot of data sets already available. A lot of sequences are available with different databases, which one could try to retrieve that and get those information. So also, looking at in a specific gene sequence or protein sequence, also how multiple sequences can be aligned. So same protein belonging to different animals, different groups, how there is similarity or no similarity. Uh, Looking at availability of these structures in the PDB database, look for which of these can be best template structures and how to generate some protein models. So some of these will be some hands-on exercise which will be conducted today. But just to connect where we discussed about in the last lecture about amino acid sequences. So sequence, when we talked about primary structure of the protein, it was just simply giving us the amino acid sequence. And that alignment, as I mentioned, is not providing the three-dimensional or the functional information, but is still very crucial because it gives a lot of valuable information like a blueprint, which could also be used for the deducing some sort of evolutionary relationship. So let's take one of the protein example, which is myoglobin. And if you look at this is the FASTA sequence, which is amino acid sequence of this particular protein, and you want to compare this one protein myoglobin and look at in human and chimpanzee. So you can obtain these sequences from NCBI, and then if you do the sequence alignment, what you see that entire sequence is exactly matching, very similar, but except one amino acid is the difference, right? And think about even sometime that one amino acid difference could be so crucial for that protein in different animals, different organism to work with. Also now, let's say within human itself, you are looking at hemoglobin, we had alpha and beta chain. Uh, but you're looking at, let's say, alpha chain specifically of human hemoglobin protein, and you are looking at human myoglobin protein sequence. So now you want to align them and you want to look at what is the sequence similarities in these particular human myoglobin protein as well as the hemoglobin alpha chain. So after doing the sequence alignment, which you are going to do shortly with the databases and different softwares, what you can see here, there is quite a bit amino acids are very similar in the hemoglobin and myoglobin. So most of them, as you can see, which is in the box, are exactly same. But also many are which are in the yellow color are showing conserved amino acid substitution, which is one amino acid is getting replaced with another, but which belongs to similar chemical properties. So it is not going to alter the property of that protein quite heavily. So based on this, looking at these kind of sequence alignment and how much conservative sequences you have, uh, one could actually get some idea that how these proteins are going to work and how these proteins are going to show the changes in the function. So therefore, these kind of sequence alignment is the first thing which you want to do when you are looking at specific proteins and you want to understand their sequences. Now, if you want to increase the more type of globin family proteins, so not only we talk about hemoglobin, alpha chain, and myoglobin, but also now you add a plant protein which is also belonging to hemoglobin family, which is the leg hemoglobin, and you now take three different sequences which you are now aligning. So what you will see now that of course similarity was much higher when you looked at the myoglobin and hemoglobin. But as you started increasing the complexity, the myoglobin and lupin leg hemoglobin, they are less similar as compared to hemoglobin and myoglobin. but also when you compare leg hemoglobin and the hemoglobin, they are having quite few similarities. So they are quite insignificant in terms of their sequences. So again, looking at these, they're all belonging to the global family. You can look at diverse evolutionary nature of the protein, and in different organisms how these sequences are similar or different. But given that they're all for the same group of proteins, at the tertiary structural level, they are quite similar, despite that at the primary sequence level, at the amino acid sequence level, they were quite different. But when you come to look at their tertiary structure, they are showing quite a bit of similarity, as you can see for hemoglobin alpha chain, myoglobin or leg hemoglobin. So now, what you can think about that function-wise, all of these three are doing similar function. They're all going to bind to the oxygen, and that is possible because of the three-dimensional structure of the protein. So many times, just by looking at this, static amino acid sequence is not sufficient. If you look at their, tertiary structure, quaternary structure, is going to give you a lot more information, and especially as in this case, you can see that at the tertiary structure level, they're all going to show that protein is going to bind to the heme groups, and it's going to facilitate the reversible binding of the oxygen. So these are just some of the examples which shows that looking at protein in totality, both at the primary level as well as tertiary quaternary level, is very important. And then using these information, one could actually then look at different sequence comparisons, and one could derive these evolutionary trees, which show that for hemoglobin alpha and beta chain, they're quite close. They're quite similar to myoglobin, but it's still far apart. And leg hemoglobin is very different. It is coming from a plant. So there, you can now see this kind of evolutionary tree looking at their sequences. So I hope this just gives you some feel that how one could do some basic bioinformatics to get an idea for possible functionality of these particular proteins and their evolutionary relationship as well. Looking at these protein sequences are quite crucial when we talk about complex diseases. And many times you will see that some proteins do not function normally, and they have some changes at the amino acid level. And as a result, they are showing some molecular defects. So as I mentioned last time, I'm sure by now you have thought about the example, which is sickle cell anemia. This is one of the classical example where just by change of one amino acid, valine to glutamic acid, in the sixth position of the hemoglobin chain, it changes the nature of the RBC, which becomes from the normal to the mutated form. And as a result, now it is not able to bind to the oxygen properly. So this is showing you the sickle cell RBC shape. So now the oxygen carrying capacity, oxygen binding capacity is reduced. And these individuals cannot climb up in the mountain, and they can't, breathe so well. So many of these challenges which you see in the complex disease like this is just coming because of a small change which is happening at the amino acid level, which you can see from glutamic acid to the valine change is happening, and that one change is making this normal protein to the mutant form of the protein. So these are, so by now we know for this disease, but for many diseases we do not know why they happen. So looking at their sequences, possible mutations, their modifications, makes us really prepared to study these things in much different manner. And as a result, now sickle cell anemia is quite known, and it's very heavy in Western African countries, as well as of course in India as well. There is quite a bit of interesting biology here, which is of course beyond the scope to talk here, but there are different genes which are mutated here. They also give some sort of traits for individuals to show resistance to the malaria, because if the hemoglobin binding capacity is low, so now as a result, when you are the falciparum or the vivax, which are the pathogens which causes malaria, they will not be able to survive well in the individuals which are having sickle cell trait. So they're going to show more resistance to the malaria. So in some way it is a trade-off. You have one problem, but that is actually going to help for something else. But that is the case largely seen in African countries, and therefore people with sickle cell trait, they show resistance to malaria. So these are a lot of interesting biological question, a lot of clinical question, which is scientists try to study, but many of these things go back to looking at just the basic sequences and the modifications and the mutations which is happening there. Of course, I'm going to take you today to much complex level of the protein study, not so basic. So in the next session, we are going to really take to the complex proteome data set and the technologies to study those. But right now for this session, we are going to continue with now some hands-on about protein sequence analysis and homology modeling. So the overview and hands-on session will be conducted by Dr. Manisha Chaudhary.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this session I'm Dr. Manisha. So I'll be taking on protein sequence analysis and homology modeling. And here in this session, so there will be some an overview on how and why we should do protein sequence analysis, and also some hands-on session on homology modeling. So as in the previous session, we came to know about protein sequences and how actually these protein sequences, they represent the structures towards the end. So like there are far too many possible conformations that are possible for a particular sequence to, by the time it makes up the secondary structure, tertiary structure, and the quaternary structure. So first, as we can see here, these are the this is an snapshot which shows the ATGC. These are the gene sequences, nucleotide base pairs. Then these actually translates to primary structure, which is the linear amino acid sequence, which of course we know that the secondary structures are the alpha helices and the beta sheets and beta strands. Then further one step ahead, we have the tertiary structure. Then we also have the quaternary structure, wherein actually now these tertiary structures, they are like mostly monomers, right? So these secondary structures, once they are connected, these alpha helix, beta sheets, these get connected by the turns and loops, then they form the tertiary structure. Now these tertiary structures, so these are again what happens is, so like alpha chains and beta chains of each monomer, they come together and then they form this kind of structures which are called as the quaternary structures. So after folding and after forming these particular global structures, so for example, we know about hemoglobin, so which is a which is a heteromer. And now these heteromers are in hemoglobin, we have two alpha chains and two beta chains, which is actually a quaternary structure. So now to make these proteins functional, actually we need these quaternary structures to properly fold. Otherwise this will lead to several kinds of diseases. These mutations at the primary amino acid level can actually cause misfolding at the global quaternary structure level, and then it may cause several diseases. So now these particular linear amino acid sequences, so they are on a regular basis. So these based on earlier Edmund sequencing, and then finally now based on the NGS, and then we also, once we do the NGS, then further on moving ahead, we translate those and then we get the protein sequences from there. So those are at a regular basis, these are getting deposited. Now we have some these public repositories where these sequences are deposited at a regular level, regular day-to-day basis. One is the NCBI database, which is the National Center for Biotechnology Information, that is maintained by NIH. So this is actually like in online, if you just Google it, we can get this information. So I hope we can make this hands-on session. And so if you all are connected to the internet, then you also can just go to Google and type this NCBI, and then try to see the web page, how it looks like. So then moving ahead, so in this NCBI, so what happens is, sorry. Yes. So in now, suppose I have gone ahead and try to actually Google NCBI. So you can see this particular web page. So this has all the information. So all the databases are, updated here on a regular basis. Suppose I have found a novel protein sequence. I have, identified a novel protein and I have sequenced that protein. Now I can actually deposit the protein sequence in NCBI and also the gene sequence. These gets updated on a regular basis. We also have SRA, which is the sequence read archive. So all the data that is generated from next generation sequencing, the databases, so those data are uploaded in SRA. So now suppose I want to look for a protein sequence in NCBI. So I just go to protein and I'll just type here hemoglobin. So we have several, hemoglobin sequences that have come up. And now suppose I just want to shortlist it and I'll just make it, I'll just go to Homo sapiens. I just want a human sequence. Yes, so you can see here right. So now, sorry, I think, yeah, let's make it this way. Yes. So now we got the hemoglobin chain. This is the alpha chain and this is the beta chain. So all these informations we can get from NCBI database. And now two important things are there that needs to be noticed in this databases. First is, now what we are seeing here is the GenBank format. So what happens in the GenBank format is we get all the information about the sequence, and now we also get information about the region names and the sequences. However, we also have another format which is called as the FASTA, which is very widely used in case of the downstream analysis. So now if we want to actually do some sequence analysis, homology modeling and other such analysis, bioinformatics analysis, it is mostly the FASTA format that is being used. So now what we'll do is, so we will just go to go and try doing a sequence analysis, multiple sequence alignment. So we will just go to Clustal Omega. So this is one software which is available online, and this software you can, this is just fun actually. If you have the internet and you can try using these all these free softwares and try exploring the data analysis yourself. So just take some sequences from NCBI or SwissProt and then try modeling and doing the sequence analysis. So now you can see here in this page. So here we have the option of selecting either protein, DNA or RNA. So whatever, like suppose I want to do an analysis of DNA, so then I can select DNA. If RNA, then I can select RNA. Now that we are considering protein, so I'll just click on protein. So then what we'll do here is we'll just paste this particular sequence this FASTA sequence here. So this is one symbol which you should be always adding whenever you are pasting any sequence. This is the FASTA format. Unless you are actually using this symbol, so it won't give you the format. Just one second. Sorry. Yes, I think. Yeah. No. Okay, I just have one more sequence. So I think. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, just I need to delete this part and just add one. Just I have to scroll down. So how do I do? Yeah, so now we have pasted these two sequences here, 1 and 2. So after this, we'll just scroll down and then we can right. So we can just go down and then you can see here the submit button. So we'll just press that button. So you can see the alignment is running now. So here we are trying to see the alignment between the alpha chain and the beta chain in case of hemoglobin. So yes, you can see this result. So here, this particular star, this represents that these two particular residues are highly identical. So you can see L and L, right? So leucine. So these two residues in case of number 1 sequence, which is the hemoglobin alpha chain, and the number 2 sequence, which is the hemoglobin beta chain. So these two residues are identical. And then further moving on, we have proline, which two are identical. And then we also have this K, which stands for lysine, is identical. Then valine is identical. So all these stars, these are representing the residues which are identical among the two sequences. Now this dot dot, this double dot colon, this means that these are more conserved ones, and these are less conserved ones. So these are highly conserved sequences in the among the two sequences, highly conserved residues, sorry. And then these single dot, this is actually less conserved in case of these two sequences. So this is how we can actually align the sequences and also come to know about how similar or how different are these two sequences. So now we can also actually just for publication purposes, we can click on show colors, and you can see that these residues get colored, and so like this kind of images, these can be taken for publication. And then we can also use certain other softwares which I'll not be showing here, but then you can also try to download and install those softwares like Multelin, so which are commonly used for multiple sequence alignment. Now after this, so the next thing that we'll be doing is, so yeah. So once now we have done we have done the multiple sequence alignment, we have pasted the sequences there, then we submitted it. So, and after that we also got the results. Now the next thing that we'll be doing is just to try to see what are the other databases present. So what I showed you, the NCBI database, that was actually a database which is having information about the gene sequences, the nucleotide sequences, and also the protein sequences, the translated protein sequences from the nucleotide sequences. However, we have some exclusive protein sequence databases such as UniProt KB, wherein in UniProt we have the SwissProt, which has all the manually annotated protein sequences, and also we have the translated EMBL, TREMBL. That also we can look for information. However, in TREMBL, so these are automatically annotated. So whenever we have any nucleotide sequences, so those will be automatically annotated to protein sequences, that is translated to protein sequences and also annotated. However, no experimental evidence is there. Now, if you actually see the number of sequences here, suppose in case of SwissProt, we have 563,552. However, now if we actually go to the one structure repository, okay, so this is one. So now what are structures, right? Protein structures. So in the previous lecture also we have heard about tertiary structures of proteins, and these tertiary structures are very important for us because whenever we want to do any kind of bioinformatic analysis, structure based drug designing, or drug repurposing studies and all using bioinformatics. So unless we have the structures, we know the structures, it is very difficult for us to actually understand what kind of binding mode will be there, and how the drug would actually go and bind, and how the conformation of the protein would change. So all those kind of information cannot be obtained unless we know the tertiary structure of the protein. So these proteins, they have several possible three-dimensional conformations, and they always try to, of course, we know that everything in nature tries to best remain at its native state, that is the lowest energy state. So that is the same thing that happens in case of protein. So we have something called as the native structure, which is also called as the wild structure. That is the native, that is resting structure of the protein. So wherein we do not have any inhibitor bound to the protein. But then we, whenever we are, co-crystallizing that particular protein with any inhibitor, supposedly a drug, possible drug. So, and then we try to actually look at the structure of that particular protein, that is a co-crystallized protein. That is a protein that would not be in its native nature, because now that it is bound to a inhibitor that would actually inhibit its function, right? So now we have several ways in case of, like on the experimental aspect, we have in structural biology approaches such as X-ray crystallography, NMR, that is the nuclear magnetic resonance, and also cryo-electron microscopy. So using these approaches, we can determine the structure, that is a three-dimensional structure of the proteins. But the main problem that we face is that these determining the structure of proteins is not at all easy. That is the first thing. And second problem is that the resolution of the structure, because in order to rely on whether the structure is correct or not, to be 100% sure, the resolution should be very much acceptable to the scientific community. So now in case of X-ray crystallography, it is the most preferred way because we get good resolution structures. However, the problem that we face is all the proteins do not get crystallized, and secondly, it is very difficult to get a protein crystallized, and especially in case of the transmembrane proteins. In case of nuclear magnetic resonance, one of the limitation is that whenever we have any protein which is very big, so then NMRs have its own resolution, so it is very difficult to solve the structure using NMR for bigger proteins. And cryo-electron microscopy has its own limitations. So now because of all these issues, so you can see that when I mentioned in case of protein sequence databases, in UniProt, we have numbers like 563, 552 protein sequences deposited. In TRMBL translated ones, we have these many sequences. However, in case of structures, we just have only 171588. That is the only number that we have that have structures. These many proteins only have structures, right? So this is one issue that we face usually whenever we are talking about drug repurposing, which is a very common term that we have been hearing in case of COVID-19. So that is the reason that bioinformaticians across the world, to overcome this particular issue, they came up with something called as structure prediction using in silico approach. Now what is happening here is, so we are using the bioinformatics tools to determine the structure of the protein. So there are basically three principal ways in which we can predict the structure of a protein. First is homology modeling. So we can go for homology modeling, or else it is also called as comparative modeling. So we can use this approach whenever we have a protein target that shares substantial similarity. Okay, so this similarity should not be lesser than 50%, that is acceptable. So higher the similarity, better of course the reliability of the structure. So if we have a template structure which has more than 50-60% identity, then we can go for homology modeling. Then we have the threading approach. So what happens here is, suppose we have a protein that shares its fold with another protein. Okay, so we have a protein sequence with us, and that protein sequence, its fold, we are assuming that particular sequence has will be sharing some of its folds. It look like a template structure. It is not 100% similar. No, even it is actually less than 50-60% similar, but then at least we can go ahead with the threading approach. What happens here is, we will consider several structures, not only one template structure. We will consider several structures, and from those structures we will take out their features, the most similar features, and then try to use an approach of threading to build a protein structure, protein model for our templates, for our sequence. So now this is one approach that can be used when you have less homology, but then it is considerable. However, if we have a protein that lacks any identifiable homology or analogy to the proteins of any known structure, then we need to go for ab initio prediction. So we have several softwares for homology modeling, and these, as we know, so these are very basic bioinformatics, and most of us can actually sit at home and just whenever we have the internet, we can go to these websites and try to model a protein of our own. So these are the softwares that are available. We can go for 3D Jigsaw, then Geno 3D. We can use Modeler from Andrew Sully's lab, which is very widely used. We can go for Predict Protein. We can go for Swiss Model from Expacy that we'll be trying today. Then we can also go for ProCheck for quality assessment of the model. Then Verify 3D and What-If can also be used for quality assessment of the model that we have generated, which is a very important point that should be taken into consideration whenever we are doing modeling studies. Now, just moving on to homology modeling using Swiss Model Server. So now here we have this particular software available online, which is a Swiss model from expacy.org. This particular software we can use for doing the modeling studies. Now, this is how the entire web page would look like whenever we go to Swiss Model. So I can just show you online. So here, this you can see. So once you go to swissmodel.expacy, so we can actually see this particular page there. Right. So now, so I was just curious. So if if you all would also like to try this software. So if yes, then can you please kindly unmute yourself and let us know. Then we can just do it together. It would be fun actually. or else I would just go ahead. So if you also want to do it along, so can you please let me know? Okay, so then, okay, let me just take you through this then. Okay, so once we go to Swiss model, so we get this web page, right? So then we can just go to start modeling, right? So once we click on start modeling, we get this particular web page. So now what we need here is a template, is a sequence, that is a query sequence. Suppose I have this particular chain, that is the hemoglobin A beta chain, okay? Then I want to model this particular protein, okay? So what I would do is I would just copy this particular sequence. Okay, so as you can see here, so this got uploaded, right? So now we can just give a title to this project, suppose modeling, and then we can just give one random email ID. So you can just give your email ID so that once the model is generated, then it would just send it to your email ID and you can actually have a look at the model that you have generated. So otherwise also it's okay. So it will just take the sequence that we have given. Now we'll just go to search for template. So you can see here, so now it shows like queuing, right? So this particular sequence, so this what the software is doing is this is actually trying to search for any template, right? So any template in the sense that any protein sequence which is similar to this protein sequence. So this is, while this is doing its job, so let us also try to see that if we actually try to blast this particular sequence, what results we get. Suppose now we go to NCBI, we have this FASTA sequence on the page, we go to run blast, we click on run blast. Now this particular page has come, right? So here already, because I have clicked on run blast right from the page where the sequence was there from NCBI, so automatically it has taken the accession number from there. So you can see now what we would do here is, in case of database, right? So you also have the options of actually, choosing, right? If I do not want the entire protein to be blasted. Now okay, just, to all the ones who might not be aware about BLAST. BLAST is nothing but basic local alignment search tool. What we are doing it here is, suppose we are taking one particular sequence from the database, and now we want to know that whether there is any similar or identical sequence already present in the database. Now suppose I'm considering here hemoglobin beta chain, okay, or hemoglobin alpha chain. Now I want to know that the particular sequence that is there, so is there any sequence available in the database that is identical to this particular hemoglobin sequence, or not identical, at least similar to this sequence. So what we can do is, if suppose I just want one certain section of the sequence, so I can just click and type in the residue number from and to. Suppose from 125 to 160, and then these many residues only I want to see the similarity. So then I can click, mention it over here. I can also give a job title, but here what I would just do, the one of the important thing is, just for normal database, suppose I just want to see the similar sequences in NCBI, then I can keep the non-redundant protein sequences. But what I want here is, I want the structure, comparison to whether there is any structure present in the database, not only sequence, but the sequence which is showing identity, does that also have a structure. So what I'll do is, I'll just go to PDB, it is selected. So BLAST P, so this is BLAST protein. So we have this option of BLAST N, that is BLAST nucleotide. So we can also BLAST nucleotide sequences. Here I'm blasting protein. BLAST X is, so what it will do is, it will search the database using a, so if I give it a nucleotide sequence, it will translate it into a protein sequence and then try to search the protein database. So I need not make that manual effort of, converting the nucleotide to nucleotide sequence to protein sequence and then blasting. So it will do it by yourself. I just have to give it the nucleotide sequence. Then it will convert to protein and then look for similar sequences in the protein database. Similarly, tBLAST-N, so the translated nucleotide databases, it will search, and here I will give a protein sequence. It will make it a nucleotide sequence and then try to look for the similar nucleotide sequence. And this is something which is very interesting. So what happens here is, we give a translated nucleotide sequence. So then it actually translates to protein. It searches for the proteins and gives back the nucleotide sequence. So here now what we are doing is, we are doing only BLAST P, that is the simple protein BLAST. So now then we just click on BLAST. So meanwhile, we might have already got the templates in Swiss model. Yes. So now when we are looking here, so you can see, so these are the information that BLAST has given us. So you can see here that chain B, right, hemoglobin chain beta chain Homo sapiens, and you can see here it is 100% identical, 100% query cover and 100% identical, right? So which means that these are 100% identical. So what that means, that basically means that we already have a crystal structure for that particular chain B of hemoglobin, right? So now what we would do is, we will just go to modeling templates. Okay, so let us just try this. So what we'll do is, we'll just go back. So as we have seen here, this is 100% identical and the accession number is 1DXTB, right? So here, but you can see here the accession number, the first one has come is 1BUW, right? So what we will do is, so basically why I did the BLAST alignment is that, whatever the identical sequence is there, based on the query coverage, filtering based on query cover and percentage identity, it will come at the top. But in case of these Swiss model, you will have to actually go through this particular sequences to actually filter out the best one. So because it already has a structure, this was just for showing, we will consider something which doesn't have the structure. Okay, so let us just go back to NCBI, and we just take some protein, suppose a icarin, which is a metalloproteinase. We just take this particular protein, right? So we are considering this protein, and then we go to FASTA. Now we will just copy this sequence Then we paste it here. Okay, so now this has already got uploaded. So similarly, again, we can just name it as modeling and then just search for templates. So now it is looking for templates. So meanwhile, we will also do the same. We will just run a blast in NCBI. Okay, so the same thing is there. So we will do the similar thing. We will blast here also. Let us see what we get from blast, the top hit. Okay, so now we can see here that, so this is a zinc metalloproteinase disintegrin like protein, right? So now you see here, so when we were doing hemoglobin, right, hemoglobin beta chain, what we got was, we got 100% query cover and 100% identity. But now this particular protein sequence that we have considered, Icarin, which is a metalloproteinase, that doesn't have a structure. So that is the reason it is showing the highest one, it is showing 68% query cover and 65% identity. 2E3X-A. So now this is 2E3X is a protein. So if I now click here, so this is a protein crystal structure metalloproteinase. Now I know that this particular protein has a sequence, has a structure already, and now we will also go to the modeling page. So it is still searching the template. So this is actually doing the same thing what we did in BLAST. So Swiss model is also looking for the same thing, the similar sequence which has a protein structure. So now you see here, the best one that we got there in BLAST was 2E3X. And here also, that is why we will take 2E3X, because that has the highest identity. If you see here 2DW2, so it is 57.9%, 57.93%, 57.76%, right? So what we'll do is, we will consider 2E3X. So let us look for 2E3X. Yeah. So you can see here this particular protein, right? So crystal structure of Russell's Viper. So this particular sequence is there. Okay, same 66% identity that we saw. Okay, so we are going to just click on this, here. We're just going to click here so that this particular template gets selected. Okay, but then if you see here, now it is showing build models too. The reason is that we have actually also selected one above which need not be selected, because we are not considering that particular protein. So we will just unselect this one. Okay, now if we sort, the best one would have come up, so that can be done. So now we have selected our template and we just can say build model. So it is running, and now we have generated a model. So you can see, so this is how the model looks like. So we can actually rotate it and see. So we can also, we have the option of taking a snapshot. Okay, so this is the model that has been generated. Now once we have generated the model, So we would also like to know whether the model is okay or it requires some refinement, right? So for that, what we would do is, so you can see when we have generated the model, so here you can see that if you, there is some information that the template structure that we have considered that had a calcium ion, okay, and also a zinc ion, okay. So if I just take my mouse over here, you can see here this part, 6 residues, and then here the zinc ion bound to these residues. So this information you can get, and now particular this model that has been generated, we can just download this particular model and then save it, okay. So here, if you click on model, you can just download it in the PDB format and save it. So PDB format is the protein data bank format, which has all the coordinate informations, because when we talk about tertiary structures, that is 3-dimensional structures, right? So it has X, Y, and Z dimensions. So this PDB format, whenever we are saving the information, it will have all the information about X, Y, and Z coordinates. So we can save this particular model in PDB format. And then we can actually use the softwares which I showed you, like Whatif, Procheck, Verify 3D. So all those softwares can be used for verifying the model, validating the model basically. So now here we will do is, here itself, so here itself, let us just try to assess the structure of the protein. We'll just go to structure assessment. So now you can see this is the Ramachandran plot and how this one actually looks like. So you can see here. So now what is Ramachandran plot? So as I mentioned, everything in nature wants to be in its resting state, right? So now the point is that as we all know that there is always a particular distance in case of tertiary structures, that 2 amino acids can be closer to this particular distance and not more than that, or which we also call as the steric clash. The side chains can only come to this, closer to this particular distance and not more than that. So based on that, we had something called as in case of peptide chains, in peptide bonds, we know that those are rigid, and only the phi and psi angles, those can only rotate, right? Now these phi and psi angles, so they have their own range. So whenever they can only rotate between this particular range and not more than that. So based on that, there is this particular Ramachandran plot, which gives us information that what are the residues that are actually showing steric clash in the protein structure, okay. Now if you go down here, you can see the clash score. So which means that there are few residues which are not falling within the allowed regions, okay. So allowed and disallowed, there are 2 terms that are used in Ramachandran plot. So you can see here, so Ramachandran outliers we have in protein is 1.91%. So, and mostly, so there are few bad angles, bad bonds. So which means that this particular model which we have made, this is not like 100% we can go ahead with this one. We needs some amount of force field to get refined and become a proper structure. Okay, so that refinement can be done using various softwares, which is beyond the scope of this lecture now. So which definitely I'll try to send you some links. If you can read those papers, you'll get more information on that. So here we can see that Ramachandran favored regions is 89.95%, like it is almost 90%. So which is good. That means that we our model is considerable. It's not that bad. So it's just that the outliers, which is a bit concerning, so which has to be refined. So once we apply force field and then try to refine the model, then all these outliers which would just go in, and we will have a proper model structure. So here you can see these are the outlier, these dots are nothing but amino acid residues, So whenever, so this green region, okay, so the inner green region, these are the allowed regions, okay, these are the generously allowed regions, and here these we have the disallowed regions. So whatever amino acid residues are outside, right, so these are in the disallowed regions. So that is the reason. So if you just click here, okay, so this particular residue serine 519, right, so this is not proper, you know, properly in its place. So definitely it needs some refinement, loop refinement is required, which if we do it, then this particular model would be of a good quality model. So now if you can see here, this is how the alignment looks like. See, for this part of the sequence here, okay, so we did not have any identity, right, we have the we have chain A information for this residues, that is these residues are present in our query sequence, the sequence which we wanted to model, but these sequences are, these residues are absent in the template, okay, so we don't have information about these residues in the template. So only for this remaining the colored bars which you can see, these residues only we have information from the template. So which means that, so that is why, as I mentioned, so now this model actually we have made on a basis of 66% identity. So more, you know, the percentage we have the identity, then better would be the model. So here it is based on 66% identity. So this is how the model looks like. And if we can go for like 80% identity, 90% identity is very good. So based on that, we'll have to actually decide that whether a protein can be modeled or not. So I think, so this was all about protein sequence analysis and homology modeling. So there are various other softwares also that can be tried and tested. So this, I think, and with this, I would like to end the session. So if there are any questions, kindly please feel free to ask now.